The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, and help me welcome David Wheeler. Dave, you're running again for executive counselor in Ward Section 5.
That's correct.
And you've been there before.
We've been there before.
Is it your turn again this year?
Yep. We've done it for 10 years, Carl. And I hope we can go back and do it again.
Well, I understand that the governor really likes you because you do watch his finances on these projects that you guys have to approve.
Yeah. We work very well together. We worked hand in hand stopping that 50% toll increase on the F.E. Everett Turnpike a couple of years back. He and I worked very well together to make sure that stopped. We had to fight because we were losing that fight 3-2, but in the end, we stopped the toll increase.
Good. Yeah. Well, that's going to be tough all over in the financial end, I believe, this year because of the virus, and the income for the state has been reduced somewhere between 500,000 and $1 billion or something.
Yeah, it was behind about $500 million. But we're making up some of that difference. Believe it or not, the business taxes are coming in strong, and that's probably been reduced. Maybe that $500 million has been reduced by about half as of right now. We'll see what next month looks like. But with unemployment down to 5.1%, that helps. People are working in New Hampshire, and we're one of the best states in the country for employment. So we're coming back. We're not where we need to be, but we're coming back.
Well, I think we've handled, I think because of the way the governor works and the way he has his people organized, we let more people come back to work earlier under safe conditions, and we're not seeing any big spikes or anything like that. Although you get every once in a while, you'll find something that happens, but it's sort of an anomaly rather than something usual.
We're doing very well. We're doing very well with the virus and getting things up and running very well.
Well, you think that this winter's going to be good, or is that going to help hurt us?
I actually wonder, and my doctor and I were chatting, he actually thinks maybe the flu season will even be better with people wearing masks.
That's true, too.
It may be a better winter. We'll see. I mean, it's hard to predict.
Right.
But we'll see where that goes.
Well, the flu season's probably going to get some more of the younger people than the virus gets. And that's at least one statistic that I saw, that people under 20 or so, more people got on the flu and not the virus.
Yeah.
So that it was pretty good for that.
Usually, and school-age kids generally bring that home. So, but we're doing very well. But the governor and I, we work, well together on other issues as well. And there's really has been a log jam on certain things in Concord right now.
Well, why don't you tell the people how you handle some of these things? I mean, you get a pile of information every 2 weeks or so.
Sure. So I guess what they may or may not know about the executive council, Carl, is that every dollar that's spent goes through the executive council, and it takes 3 out of the 5 of us to okay that spending before the money can be spent. So we're kind of the watchdogs on that spending at the state level. One of those contracts was for some money to take an attorney general and go straighten out the Hillsborough County, attorney's office.
Right.
That had really been a mess over there. There were secret plea deals going on, people getting off of domestic violence charges, and then they agreed to keep it secret, which is against the law. That's one reason the Attorney General wanted to go down there. There was a cocaine dealer who had coke in his house, and his 2-year-old son got into it and died. And basically, our current county attorney just wanted to give him a little slap on the hand. There was another case where a woman was threatened by a boyfriend that he would kill her and bury her, and he got off without any sentence in a plea deal, and 6 months later he killed her. And so there was good reason for the Attorney General to go down there and help review what the county attorney's office was and was not doing regarding how strong the sentences should be, regarding their communication with the local police departments on these cases. Right. And so, that's something that Councilor Pignatelli voted against, getting that mess straightened out.
Really?
And that's one reason I want to go back, is I want to be able to support law enforcement. I want to be able to support law and order. If, God forbid, if riots ever come here, we need to deal with them
right away. Yeah,
right away, and nip that in the bud. One of the other jobs the council does is hire the head of police standards and training, and so we do have a new person in there now, but we do have some influence to make sure that they are tough on crime and not soft on crime. The current counselor won't tell us whether she would commute Michael Addison's sentence.
Oh.
The person that cold-bloodedly murdered the police officer in Manchester?
Yeah.
She won't say. And I think the public have a right to know that if that issue comes up when I'm on the council, I will not commute his sentence. There's no question in my mind that he's guilty. There were plenty of witnesses. It's not a circumstantial built case. There's plenty of eyewitnesses that he just cold-bloodedly killed that officer, and he needs to pay the price.
Yeah.
So being soft on crime, not me.
So it's not
that
just
needs to change.
It's just not bills and stuff. It's a whole bunch of different controls that you have. I mean, that's a sort of a second review.
Sure.
And your experience over the years certainly gives you reference to things that have happened in New Hampshire for the last 20 years or so.
Yeah.
And I know you told me some stories about some of these bills that are a little complex, but you were able to work out and look and see where you saw some strange things in there that you saved us money.
A lot of contracts, though, that we could save money on, one agency was requiring bonds to be able to bid on low dollar projects, let's say projects under $10,000. And we weren't getting but one bidder, and we couldn't figure out why for a while. I kept looking, and I found that, wait a minute, these guys are asking people to buy a bond to be able to bid on a smaller job, So we changed the policy and said, look, a job's got to be over $38,000 before you can require someone to do all that paperwork and get bonded just to bid on a job that they may or may not get.
Yeah.
So there's no problem with having a performance bond to make sure the contractor performs, but a bid bond was ridiculous. And so we made that change, and we started getting more than just one bid on these smaller projects. So
you have control over the mechanism that you have to use. You can, your rules of operation are modified if you find a better way of operating?
Well, we have the influence. Like I said, if the agency can't get 3 out of 5 votes for a project that they want to do, then it's not going to fly. So in essence, we can say, unless you do A, B, and C, it's not going to fly.
I see.
And that is our
But
type
you don't
of
have
oversight.
You don't have to go through the legislature to get those permission to change your rules.
No, that's more of a process and transparency, issue.
Right.
And speaking of transparency, one of the other reasons that I'm running is that the current counselor just has so many connections to her husband's lobbying clients. It's as I started to really dig into that, and let me give you an example. For instance, her family lobbies for Eversource. Now, we read in the paper back in August, they wanted a 24% rate increase.
Right.
Well, Councilor Pignatelli voted to put a person on the Public Utilities Commission who was going to be setting the rates for her husband's clients. And she voted for that. And she voted for a person for the Site Evaluation Committee and the Site Selection Committee. All those things are in direct conflict with her husband's client. All have direct benefits should the outcomes come out correctly for the client. And she just has no business voting on lots of business at the state level.
So people normally would recuse themselves from
They normally would recuse themselves. And another example would be they represent Merck Pharmaceuticals.
Oh,
She voted to put someone on the pharmacy board. And then all these disciplines that are under in the healthcare area, let's say, nurses and doctors and those that the medical review board, those that would be reviewing policy and which medicines do we use and such as that. She voted for those people, while at the same time her family's representing Merck Pharmaceuticals. It's just there's a lot of examples. I hate to say, her family represents Anthem Blue Cross. And she voted for the insurance commissioner who regulates and who makes the rules for Anthem Blue Cross. And she has no business doing that. It's a direct conflict of interest. And
when your relatives are lawyers and involved in those things, you have to be careful with how you control something.
Yeah.
That's,
yeah.
I mean, it's questionable whether it is, but that's just you want to avoid that. It certainly, I don't know whether you find things like that in other areas too.
Well, it's even with appointments. I mean, one of the lobbyists from the Pignatelli Law Group was put on the Air Resources Council. And, it's just with her being there and her husband and works for her husband. Now, she recused herself on that one.
Oh.
But it's just has the look of impropriety when that happens. It's really, they have so many different clients from so many different disciplines.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's,
she shouldn't be voting a lot. And if she can't vote, then she can't represent the people of this council district.
Well, and there's plenty of people that you can have to fill these positions, like you.
Sure.
I know there are other ones that have been in the executive board, for that in the past. So, So,
I'm one of the only councilors that still goes out and works every day. I'm not independently wealthy.
right.
This morning I was digging a hole with my mini excavator, and this afternoon I'm with you. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, that's your experience, though. I think is valuable to the state.
Yeah.
Have you been able to work with the governor on anything else? I mean, has he used your skills in any way?
Well, we like to work together, like on appointments, for instance. Just like in Washington, D.C., we're short one state Supreme Court justice.
Right.
And the governor had nominated Gordon MacDonald, our current Attorney General, to that position, and the Democrat-controlled council refused to accept him. And for the flimsiest reasons, or the flimsiest fake news reasons. But I believe the bottom line is they don't want a strict constitutionalist on the court. They don't want someone on the court when cases come to it that's going to say, you only vote New Hampshire if you live in New Hampshire. They want a Supreme Court that would give us a Claremont 3 and would try to force us not only with the statewide property tax we have now, but with a broad-based income tax to fund schools. That's the Supreme Court they want. And they know a strict constitutionalist isn't going to write that law when they can't get it through the legislature for them. So those are the reasons I think that they turned down Gordon MacDonald. And I would say, should the governor nominate Gordon MacDonald and should I be elected, it would be my pleasure to vote for him.
Well, he seems to have a sterling record, and I don't know the man, but his reputation is high.
Yeah. I have been pleased with most of what he does as an attorney general. I think he has been a very good attorney general, very thorough, has always been there and been able to answer questions that come up on the council when they come up. And but if the governor does move forward and we can put him on the Supreme Court, then of course we're going to need a new attorney general.
Right.
So there could be a lot of important appointments coming up.
What other appointments do you have? Do you think that will come up other than that?
Well, we know, and some of them have been filled with someone different. But since we're in Nashua today, I think of Ryan Terrell for the State Board of Education. Again, he's an independently minded person. He's a person that would take a look at educational choice. I think he's a person that would want all educational options to succeed, not just the monopoly of government schools, but public charter schools, private schools, home education. All those options need to be there for parents and children. I think it's very close-minded to think that you have to do it this way and only this way with only our unionized employees. The only way you can get a good education. Right. And it's simply not true.
Right.
But they don't want anybody on the State Board of Education. I understand that he was educated, at least partly, in a charter school.
Yeah. He has a background. I happen to know a little bit about him because he's running for the state legislature here in Ward 4.
Yeah.
And I think that it was an excellent choice because you're bringing a little bit of young talent, relatively young. I guess he's still under 30, but but that's what you need. Yeah. You need somebody who's gone through the experience. He's known what he found good and what he found bad. And he could be a great influence. We have I shouldn't say this, but we have too many old people up there that are too set in their ways. And you want somebody in there that tells you a little bit more and communicates with the people that you're going to be serving.
Yeah, I think he would have. I think he would have been a great choice. But so much for bipartisanship, Carl.
Right.
They preach bipartisanship all the time, and when it comes down to anybody that opposes their ideas, they oppose them. Like Eddie Edwards.
Yeah.
Eddie Edwards, the governor put up for the liquor to run the licensing department. I mean, it's an important job.
Yeah.
But it's not something you need a PhD for.
Right.
So it's hard for them to say Eddie Edwards wasn't qualified. Eddie Edwards headed the liquor enforcement division at the Liquor Commission. Gosh, he was overqualified, for the job.
Yeah,
but he was a Republican candidate for Congress, so no appointment for him.
Right. I've seen that too many places. We're getting. They want one kind of health care for everybody.
Yeah,
you don't want that. You want somebody who has a choice. What are they going to do? Not everybody likes it, and especially in education, but there's a lot of different things, healthcare, other ways of rules and regulations that you have. I know one thing we did in 2011 was to look at all the rules and regulations that they have. And that was one way, just getting extra income, because they were having rules and regulations that really weren't needed, and they fined people when they weren't obeying them right to the strict letter of the law.
Sure. I think, that was a great review back in 2011. I think we need to do that, do that regularly. So,
Yeah, it can build up. I think people don't look too carefully at that. And, I think we can do things that make our administration area a little bit more efficient.
sure.
I think it's kind of hard to do the changes with the way the unions control some of that. But I think it worked out better when there were a couple of things again back in that year, and I draw the example mainly because it had also $1 billion shortage in their budget, and they made it work without any kind of problem.
Yeah. I think a review of all that continually, One of the things that I did on the council was lower the thresholds of contracts that we look at in detail. When I first got on the council in 2000, we looked at all contracts above $5,000.
Right.
And then when I wasn't on the council, Deb Pignatelli and the Democrat council raised that threshold to $25,000. When I got back on the council, I was realizing we had a lot of contracts for $24,995. So the threshold was really $50,000 without any scrutiny. And I think it's important for the viewers to understand that all these contracts are voted on in public, with the sound on and the cameras rolling, in the State House in Concord, which I think is a badge of honor for the state of New Hampshire, to have a system that has so much public insight into what's going on, who's getting the contracts, and the why that's discussed, around the table. So when I started seeing these $24,995 contracts coming in, I got together with the other council and says, look, we can adjust this for inflation, but let's put this back down to $10,000. So we get a bird's eye view of, even small contracts, and making them being voted on in public, so we can see, we don't want, if we see John Jones getting all the snow plowing contracts, for instance, we should just take a second look and see why, see what relationships there might be, between people and those getting the contracts, just like Pignatelli and her husband's lobbying firm.
Yeah.
That's just, you really shouldn't be on the inside and the outside at the same time. The whole thing smacks of conflict, especially with the big gun, big pharma, big energy, big oil, big tobacco, big finance, big healthcare clients. I mean, it's hard to even vote on anything without having a conflict of interest, or at least the perception of a conflict of interest. So it's time for a change.
Does the Executive Council ever look at the auditing system that they have up there to see how effective that is? Or is that something you would be involved in?
So when the legislative budget assistant does their audits of different departments, like they do from time to time, but usually the legislature gives that department some direction, go look over here. We think there's a problem over here, and maybe it's a systemic problem, not necessarily a financial problem, but it could be. We're copied on all those legislative budget audits, and so that we can kind of watch and see, if the suggested changes are rolling through and getting implemented. So we do give a little oversight to that.
Because that's good, because that's another one of the things that I found in my early years up there is that some committees sort of let the audit reply slide, so that the same thing was there for 3 or 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
And you don't want that.
No.
You got to shape them up too. But I didn't know whether you people, your department there was involved, because I thought they wrote very good audit reports.
Most of the time, they have very good suggestions.
Yeah.
And how to do things better.
Right.
And sometimes those suggestions might even be you need to pay this person a little bit more so we can get someone in charge that can really, run the outfit. I guess the last appointment, Carl, that I wanted to talk about was Frank Edelblue.
Oh, yes.
Because Councilor Pignatelli refused to give him a pay raise, which totally perplexes me. He is the best education commissioner we have had in a long, long time. And I think his business background serves him well in that job.
Yeah, well, definitely.
We have watched him put out contracts, similar contracts that are annual type contracts. And he writes into them, this is the deliverable. 50% through the contract, we're going to watch and see if you're delivering what you said you were going to deliver. And at the end of the contract, we're going to make sure that we got the results that we were expected to get. Those type of things he learns from business.
Right.
And
definitely.
applies it to the Department of Education. Very valuable. And that just wasn't done before. So he's great. He's just really great. And, but he supports, having different choices in educational
Definitely, yeah.
models.
Yeah.
And so the Democrats won't touch that with a 10-foot pole. So they're very ideological, even though they say they're not and they'll represent everybody. It just isn't true. So you got some really, really good choices in this council race. Whether I fit what you believe in or whether Deb Pignatelli fits what you believe in. But I think I'm the guy, of course, because I'm running.
Well, it sounds like you, with your experience and some of the problems that you see and have fixed already, I think is a valuable thing to bring up.
Takes a lot of reading. You don't just accept what's handed to you.
You get a lot of paperwork then.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of reading. I read twice as fast as I used to. Because you have to.
Well, Dave, I hope your campaign's running well because we just ran out of time and we have. So good luck on your campaign, and I hope you do get elected. When you do, please come back and we can talk about what you find now in the in the review of the.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Carl.
Well, you're quite welcome.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.